Welcome guys to another episode with Antagonized. Today we're just going to be talking about a little bit of what I'm thinking of doing this 2020 and some of my, I wouldn't call it 2020 resolutions, I'd call it, I guess, 2020 update. Best way I could put it. Basically, I just wanted to make a video talking about the benefits of buying used on the computer market, especially the computer market. I think we're just going to talk about computer market today because I could talk about the car market. Basically, a lot of things are better bought used, but especially cars and computers, and they're for two different reasons. But in terms of raw savings, I think that a lot of the times you could save a lot more buying used computers. Used cars, it's a different reason why we buy used cars, kind of. And so I just want to go around and talk about my history with my current computer, the one you hear in the background. This computer, I call it the Pyromaniac. And the reason why I call it Pyromaniac is that the specs have been built in a way that just so happens that the computer is in the black and red color format, I guess. Basically every component is either black or red or both. Aside from the archive drive that I bought recently. And it looks really nice. It has tempered glass. It has a really good power supply, very large power supply. Actually, I'm about to get a second one in the case, and you'll see why. It's got a very good overclockers board. It's an LN2 board by it's a ROG board, so it's very good at overclocking. It's got a lot of overclocking tools, and I'm pretty sure it's an 8+2 phase. I'll look it up, but it's a Rampage 3 Extreme. So I'll talk about it in the review. Not in the review, sorry, in the description. And it's a, like, from the outside, you wouldn't know how cheap I got this computer. I will list down the specs of my computer. I have cheated a little bit. A lot of used computers. You buy the components, and that's basically like your raw price, right? If I just calculated my raw price, you would see that I didn't get exactly the best deal in the world. About a year ago, it had cost me around $700 the whole thing, and that's definitely not bad. I mean, for the specs, which I'll go through. But I'll just go around. I'll just start. So about a year ago, I was about to start university, and I had not have my own computer in a very long time. My previous old computer, my previous, like, what's it called? My previous computer, which I would daily use, was a Core 2 quad. I had sold it for $160. And it also had a GTX Titan in it that I kind of like. I would say I got it as a present from a dear friend of mine, and I ended up selling the whole thing for a massive cash load. And I wanted to do something with the cash load, so I ended up building Xbox Original out of some old components. Used the Core 2 Duo, pre-built motherboard. I think I had 4 gigs of RAM, something like that. And I ended up having this computer around for quite a while, not really knowing what to do with it, and I kind of left it there. So that computer wasn't really usable, in my opinion. It's not a gaming computer, and I was tired of using my dad's computer because, I mean, I built it for him, and it was pretty powerful overall, but it wasn't exactly my computer. It wasn't built to the specs I wanted, and it wasn't really something I could, carry around on the in the campus, and not get screamed at when I get home and it's full of slush or something. I don't know. Any of the things that could happen with a student's computer. Now, my requirements for this computer was that absolutely it had to run Sony Vegas, or any kind of video editing software. I didn't really care for the software itself, as long as it would run the software extremely fast. I mean, I wanted to cut down my rendering time. Right now, well, I mean, back then I always had a rendering ratio of 1 to 2. So it would always take me, for every 1 minute of video, it would take me 2 minutes to render. And that really scales really well. I guess it's because I'm using such an old version of Sony Vegas. I mean, it's such a shitty version. I mean, this thing can't even utilize more than 2 cores. I think it could utilize 4 threads, but I'll talk about it in a second. Basically, it had to be able to run Sony Vegas better than what I had now. It also needed to be a gaming computer, and a good one at that. I wanted to be able to record my gaming, and I wanted to be able to upload it if I wanted to. I had to be able to somewhat capture the video, which at this point is not really hard to do. I mean, as long as you have a graphics card from after 2011, 2012, you should be totally fine. But at the time, it was a little difficult. So it had to be powerful. I also wanted to run a monitor. Not any kind of monitor. I had 2 choices. Either I went with an ultra wide, that's the 21:9, I believe, 21:9 ratio, 1080p monitor, or I could go with a 144 hertz 1080p. And the reason why I wanted to go with an ultra wide was that ultra wide always fascinated me, and I felt like it was really, really good in situations where I was playing Counter-Strike. At the time, I was playing a lot of Counter-Strike, a lot of FPSs. I'm an FPS guy. I mostly play FPSs. So ultra wide really made me intrigued, and so basically, what it came down to is, where could I compromise? I didn't really need 144 hertz. I kind of was leaning towards around 100. If I could get, a 1080p monitor at 120 hertz, but at a ridiculous price, then I would buy it. However, they don't make 120 hertz anymore. But what they do make is ultra wide monitors, IPS, 1080p, like full 21:9, at 75 hertz. And when I saw that, the LG model, I bought the small one, which honestly is a little too small, but that's fine. It made me so happy. I mean, I got it dirt cheap. I got it just as cheap as your 1080p monitors, your brand new 1080p monitors, at 75 hertz. So I was extremely happy with the deal I got with that, and that's kind of where my build went. My build went. So the next step was, I wanted to find a way to run Sony Vegas extremely well. So originally I wanted a Xeon E5, a 6-core, kind of your Sandy Bridge 6-core CPU, and a lot like the CPU I talked about in my X79 versus X99 review I did last year. Around the same time, I had finished my computer here. But I wanted more cores. I wanted maybe 10, 12 cores. I thought that would have been really cool. So I went ahead and I tried to get a cheaper system. And what you guys don't know, well, a lot of people don't know, but what you guys don't know is that I've always been impressed with dual CPU motherboards. And there's not that many dual CPU motherboards that overclock like extremely well, like they overclock through the BIOS. Um, One of which, however, is the EVGA. It's called the EVGA SR2, and the SR2 is effectively two EVGA X58 classifieds put together. So I don't remember how large is the power phase. I don't think it's literally twice the power phase they used on the classified, but it's a ridiculous power phase. It has it has twice the PCIe lanes, which is good for me. I mean, it only has like all of its, like, if you look at the motherboard, it has like 6 or 8 PCIe X16s. I mean, it's an insane motherboard. It's really crazy when it comes to, like, you know, expansion cards and, you know, overclocking with your dual CPUs. So X58 X2 allowed you to use two Xeon X5600s series, and those would have 6 cores, 12 threads, 12 megs of L3 cache. I mean, the L2 cache is really bad, so, you know, watch out for that. And it had a slightly better IPC than Core 2 Quad, so that made me really happy. The other thing is, the 5600s, they were the first processors from Intel to get to the 32 nanometers. What that meant is I could effectively overclock these things to their max. I've heard of, you know, amazing, you know, golden boy stories of the 5690s slash the 990Xs. Those were overclocked to 5 gigahertz. I think they were some of the first CPUs to just like fully overclock to 5 gigahertz on liquid. Not liquid nitrogen, I mean, just, you know, just on a cooler. So that really interested me. Next up was how would I get the system? Now I looked around, and the thing is, dual motherboard systems are extremely rare. Especially the EVGA. The EVGA motherboards, they're so expensive at this point that I didn't see that as worth it at the time. I said, okay, you know what? I'll build the first iteration, and then I'll go from that iteration to an EVGA. So I was looking around. All I wanted was, it had to have 2 6 cores on the build. It had to have a dual socket motherboard, of course, and it had to have like RAM and a cooler, and any of these things were bonus, but I definitely needed the motherboard and the CPUs. So I looked on eBay, and I had no luck for, I think, like a month, and that's when I was considering just bumping up my budget back to, you know, the Sandy Bridges, and maybe get an Ivy Bridge 10 core, which honestly would be probably a better IPC, but it wouldn't be as much as fun in terms of overclocking. So I was concerned. I was getting a little depressed with this build. I was like not getting what I wanted, and that's when it hit me. I mean, the ad. eBay someone had listed on eBay, really, like, I think it was probably his like old website server, maybe something bigger, maybe a gaming server, and it had exactly what I wanted. Sorry. It had a BioStar dual socket motherboard, which now I know that apparently there's a community of BIOS hackers that literally overclock with those. There was 24 gigs of ECC RAM. At the time, I didn't think it was ECC. It had 2 Xeon X5670s, which are, you know, a little bit of the higher end 5600s, which is good. I've heard people overclock them to around 4.8, 4.9 gigahertz, no problem. They're not exactly 5680s. I think 5680s do overclock slightly better, but they are better than 5650s, which overclock like dog shit sometimes. I believe it's it's because of the leakage. I'm not sure how the leakage works with these CPUs, but nevertheless. And I also got 2 other processors, and I didn't really care for them. I believe they were just basically i5 equivalents. They were quad cores. I think they had I don't think they had hyper threading, and I think they had 8 megs of cache. So I think they were slightly better than your desktop i5s. But I didn't really care for them. I just kind of left them there and tried to sell them. So I ended up getting that, and then I needed. Oh yeah, and the best part, the other thing that was really good was that they came with 2 Hyper 202 CPU coolers. And the whole thing was $200. This is all in Canadian, by the way. Everything is in Canadian in this video. So $200. I felt really good because I could sell the CPUs for, I don't know, 20 bucks each. And I would go around, with $140. Now the thing is, as a used PC parter, I'd suggest doing deals like this. If you're risky, you get a bunch of stuff and then you sell some of the stuff to regain some of your money. This is okay. However, I wouldn't put it as a benchmark. If I ever made a competition, which by the way, it is possible in 2020, we are making a PC competition, I would have to not consider that. But because this is my personal build, this is just a podcast, I guess, we're just not, we're gonna talk about it. So I ended up getting this motherboard in the first iteration of Pyromaniac, which at the time was Pyromancer. Pyromancer had 24 gigs of RAM, so that's 12 gigs for each CPU. It had 12 cores, 24 threads. It had a Samsung 1TB 860 EVO, which I had bought new because I found a good deal. I think it was around Black Friday. Actually, I think it was earlier, but that's fine. I got it for 150 bucks Canadian, which is good. I think they're getting cheaper now, but nevertheless. I didn't get a second hard drive till much later, so we're not going to talk about that. And I got an R9 290. Now the R9 290 was actually a Tri-X model, and what I like about the Tri-X is that it's the best bang for buck, because I think it's one of the most sold 290/290Xs, but it's also one of the best overclockers. It's got a triple fan setup. Obviously, it's a very large shroud, and I believe the VRMs are extremely well made. Just the system, how they did it was good. So they overclocked pretty well. I think they're some of the better overclockers. I could have gotten a Vapor X. That was also something I was interested. But it really came down to what was less rare. What could I get a better price on? And I had found a guy who had 2 R9 290s, selling them on the market. He was upgrading to, I believe they were Vegas at the time. Yeah, I think there were 2 Vega FEs. So the guy, I don't know, he was some sort of AMD high roller enthusiast. That's the best way I could describe him. So he had 2 R9 290s. I bought them off of him for $150. Or was it less? No, it wasn't 150. Never mind. I think it was $210. I ended up selling one of them at the time for $180. So how much is that? 230 minus 180. Basically $50. But we're not going to talk about it. We're just going to assume it's cost me 180 bucks because I don't remember the specifics. Okay, let's not assume that. Let's assume I got it for $50. I basically got an amazing fucking deal. If I had sold the second R9, I would have gotten it for ridiculously cheap. I ended up keeping it, however, because I wanted to play with the Tri-X's. So I ended up overclocking it, core unlocking it, and undervolt it. And the total power I got was extremely good. I mean, even stock, it was amazing. But once I got the 44 CUs and the, I think it was a 1130 megahertz, and then I also undervolted it a little bit. I wasn't really good at it. Got amazing performance in ultra wide. I mean, it was technically more powerful than a GTX 1060. And I've had some horror stories trying to sell that second R9, but man, was it good. Anyways, so that was kind of my first build. Oh, and I also forgot I got an 850 watt EVGA Gold Plus, which had cost me, I think it was $75 at the end because of the mail-in rebate and the sale. I was extremely happy. I mean, 850 watts, that is ridiculous. So I played with the PC for a while. I played CSGO. CSGO was playing at really good settings, ultra wide. I was extremely happy. I had basically gotten free kills a lot of the time. It was extremely loud. That was one problem. The Tri-X's, they didn't have any of these sophisticated fan systems, which later graphics cards got. They wouldn't shut down. They'd always be on, and I think they were maxed most of the time. I don't remember what I did with the fans, but they were extremely loud. And Hyper 202's also very loud. You can hear one right now in my build. It's already loud. I had 2 of those, and I had 3 fans attached to them, so extremely loud. So a couple months later, I decided to start playing Far Cry. I wanted to get back into it. I had some friends from university that wanted to hang out, have a LAN party for, literally, like, I think it was like 4 days of the university. Oh no, it was a whole week, whole fucking week. 3 guys, 1 apartment, going from the apartment to university and back. I mean, at one point we were literally going, like, one guy would deal with 1 class, and there's always 2 guys in the apartment. It was hilarious. And so we ended up playing a lot of Far Cry. I had bought 3, 4, and I'd cracked 5, I believe. And so I started playing Far Cry 3 at first, right? I wanted to get back into it. I had not done a lot of the challenges the first time I did it because I got bored pretty quickly. I mean, I was 14, 15, and I wasn't about doing the challenges, but I ended up starting to play, and I realized that I was getting a lot of micro stutter. And Far Cry 3 wasn't always a stable release for PC, but this was too much for me. This was a little too much for me. So I looked at that point. I was kind of frustrated because it had been months that I was looking for the EVGA SR2 for cheap. I had talked to a bunch of people, and they refused to get the price lowered to less than 600, I believe. Now it's closer to 400, which is good. But it's scummy. I mean, this is a motherboard that came out 10 years ago, and I mean, okay, it has some stuff that's pretty cool, but when the CPUs that you put in them are less than $20 each, something has to give. And I'm not angry at these people. I understand, these are cool motherboards. But I don't understand this stigma, or not. It's not a stigma, but this idea that, computer parts can be collectible. Okay, sure, they can, but the only, when something, and I know a lot of people on the internet would either bash me for it or praise me for it, when something when a tool or a resource is being used, is used for something, right? And when that's something, it's either irrelevant or it has gone to another level of complexity which this tool or resource cannot handle it anymore, you're bound to make it lose prices. You have to drop its value. You don't have a choice. That's effectively how I see it. Um, there's also, like, I don't understand these people that are buying computers like they're cars. These are fucking idiots, okay? And this is why I like buying used, because you could buy 10-year-old components most of the time, except for the EVGA, 10-year-old components for a fraction of the price, and for new components. And yeah, sure, it's a huge compromise in some cases, you know, but for instance the IPC, but overall, I'm getting such a better deal than all these motherfucking idiots, because I'm getting almost all the FPS you guys are getting. Like, I think I'm getting 80% of the FPS you guys are getting, and it only cost me 20% of the price. So I don't understand this fucking retardation right now. So I didn't have a choice. I had to downgrade. I didn't want dual CPUs anymore. So I ended up setting up my server motherboard. And the thing is, I didn't have time to fuck around because midterms were coming up. And so I really had to sell the motherboard, take the money that I had from in cash, and buy a new one. So this is why I didn't get the best deal, but I got a pretty good one considering the float. So I sold the motherboard, the 8 cores, and the 24 gigs of RAM for it was excuse me. It was $250. Now, this was the funniest fucking event in my life, I think, when it comes to computers. I've talked to a lot of crazy people with computers. I mean, I used to sell computers for fucking... I used to buy computers for $10 and sell them for $50. So the people that I used to hang out with, they were really weird, but I've never met a nut job like this. So I sell this. So I'm on Kijiji. At the time, I was not on Facebook Marketplace. I was strictly on Kijiji, so I have no clue how I made my profit. But put my motherboard, put my CPUs, put my RAM, all in one. I said I want to get rid of it. I don't care. A day later, guy texts me, "Hey, I need this. How much you want for it?" I think I put please contact on it. That's why. And I basically said, like, I don't know. I bought it for $250. I'll sell you it for $250. That's effectively what I said. And he literally said, "Yeah, sure. Where do you live?" And I said, "Well, you know, I live there, and you know, it might be kind of far for you. What I could do this weekend, I could bring it to your house." He said, "No, I'm good. I'll pick it up from you." So I was confused because, I mean, in a day's time, no negotiation, blah blah blah. So I was a little confused. I was really happy at the time. So he comes to my place in a truck, and he tells me he's from the countryside, which I'm probably an hour, maybe an hour and a half away from the village he was from. So I was really confused to what the fuck he was doing here and why he suggested to come. But basically, he comes in, knocks on my door, "Hey man," looks at the computer, and that's when I noticed he's a pretty old guy. He's, you know, a boomer almost. And he's kind of looking at my specs, and he's like, "This is perfect. Yeah, okay." And he pulls out his wallet. Oh, and he asked me, "Does it work?" I really need it to work. And I said, "Yes, it works." I pulled it out on my computer right there. So he's like, "Here you go." He gives me $250, takes the motherboard, and I say, "So yeah, I was gaming with this motherboard. I was just wondering what you were gonna do with it, and that's when he started ranting to me. This was a Bitcoin miner, a Bitcoin investor. He had a fucking facility with a billion fucking Bitcoin miners, and he was buying this because he was sure to make profit. He felt like he would make profit with this computer running. Thing is, that computer didn't have all that many PCIe slots. So, I mean, sure, but I mean, like, I know a thing or two about Bitcoin mining. If you don't have like at least 4 GPUs on one motherboard, you're kind of fucked. So unless you had a bunch of extenders and you didn't really care about data latency, stuff like that, I mean, yeah, whatever, it's good motherboard. But it's also a dual CPU motherboard, which means you're using more wattage than you need. So I was really confused why he was doing that. Now, I asked him why he needed a dual socket. I did that. I said, well, I mean, there's Bitcoin specific motherboards at this point, which I will never recommend those. Like, I've never recommended those in my life. They're cool, but they're basically useless. And he basically said, well, you see, I used to sell Bitcoin, but now we're actually building a membrane. And that's when I fucking lost it. So this is a cultist. I'm talking to a computer cultist. He has a server somewhere in a facility, and he used to do Bitcoin, but one day some fucking scammer decided to tell him to use his computer power to power a brain, which we're a long ways before that. I don't know if you guys knew that. We're basically impossible at this point. So I was extremely confused to what fucking movie this guy came out of, and why he's wasting his money like a fucking idiot. So that was a sad story, but it was also a funny story at the time. So what did I do with that $250? Well, 50 of those dollars went back in my bank account, and at $200 I bought a new motherboard. It was a LN2 overclockable Asus ROG Rampage 3 Extreme. Now the Rampage 3 series was weird because they had a couple of Intel motherboards. If you don't know, ROG Rampage is the Intel list of motherboards, and the ROG Formula is the AMD. So my Rampage cost me fucking $200. I wanted to negotiate. I think I wanted 150. I was not happy to pay 200, but it came with a lot of goodies. He had 12 gigs of RAM. Okay, it was cheap RAM, that's fine. Came with an i7-920. That was okay. I mean, I could sell that easily. So at the end, I could have probably gotten the motherboard cheaper, but hey, I already made profit off of the first guy. I was fine with just paying whatever. And so that is basically what my build was for a large amount of months. It was a single CPU, X5670, overclocked to, I think it was 4 gigahertz, a Hyper 202, Rampage 3 Extreme, 12 gigs of RAM, an R9 290, 850 watt gold, and a 1 terabyte Samsung. Now from there, I think a couple months later, I do a lot of YouTube poop. I don't know if you guys know that. I really like YouTube poop. I always did, and I like doing it. Now the problem is, excuse me, what I didn't know at the time was that Sony Vegas is dog shit when it comes to rendering. I know that, and I've known this forever. My crack refuses to use graphics card acceleration. It basically only uses it for certain like only when you're looking at your real-time video, and my 290 is much better than any other graphics card I've used. But when you go for the acceleration, in the settings, it refuses to use it, which is really annoying because I have a graphics card that has a couple teraflops of power. I'd rather use that power. So, what was I saying? The biggest problem is that it seems that Sony Vegas can't scale with cores and threads. So I'm limited to basically one core running at 4 gigahertz, which, like I said, 1-to-2 ratio. I'm literally like I made that 1 hour snippet of the mixtape or remix tape, I guess, and that took me 2.5 hours. It was insane. So what I'm hoping for is to get a new video editing software. But in the meantime, I have a lot of clips and YouTube poop that's just on my hard drive. I also have I think even more, way more capture content, which I've deleted a lot of it when I noticed that. But I filled up my 1 terabyte, so that pissed me the fuck off. So I had to buy a new hard drive. Bought a Archive 4 terabyte Barracuda Pro. Pretty good hard drive. I recommend it. It's a 5400 RPM, but it performs. I mean, if you're fucking retard that wants always the fastest speeds, then don't buy it. But I suggest it for anyone that understands that you're making. It's an archive drive. It's made to store shit and boot it up on it. At a large latency problem. So why did I get the 1 terabyte in the first place? If I'm talking shit to people that buy extremely fast hard drives, well, I actually have a use for that 1 terabyte. See, whenever I have videos that I'm using for YouTube poop, I fucking hate it when it takes a million years to swap out videos, snip out videos, save videos. That shit's annoying to me. So I actually need that 1 terabyte to YouTube poop to the max. That's my excuse. I don't know about yours. So that was a couple months ago. I think that was 6-7 months ago. From then on, I kind of got pissed with my R9 290. It's kind of loud and it started smelling like fumes. So I had to clean it and I had to change out the tapes. What's it called? The thermal pads. I had to clean out the thermal pads, change them, swap them. So that's what I did, and then I sold it for $180 again. Don't know why they're still worth so much, but they are, so that's good. They actually aren't worth that much. I mean, my friend bought 2 of them for $150 the other day, so they're not really worth all that much anymore, but I had some profit off of that. I ended up selling, finally, years of using my Xbox original PC. Well, it wasn't used, but it was more like boxed and archived, because it was kind of like left away. I didn't really use it all that much. I ended up selling that one for $200. No clue how. Guy wanted a HD PC and he thought my build was cool, so he just bought it. No fucks given. So I had a little bit of money. I said, okay, well, I'll definitely look around and see what I can upgrade. Oh yeah, I had a GTX 1050 Ti laying around, and I don't remember how I got it, but I think it was some sort of contest from a government shop or some bullshit. So like in where I live, I was about to say where I live. Where I live, there are a lot of government buildings, as most cities. And some places they actually have refurbishing shops from computers from the government. Now a lot of these shops are not doing too well. They get funding from the government because the government wants to sell all this shit, and they promise basically profit. And when no fucking kids come over, they have to do interesting techniques. And I've profited off of these guys like a million times, because you go to the auctions and they start their bidding really low, so you just win every time because nobody shows up. I've had a couple times where they do, but that's fine. Um, so one time they had a GTX 1050 Ti, and it was in display, and I asked about it, and they said, well, yeah, I'm giving this out to whoever who wants to buy this amount of money off, well, this amount of value computers off of me. So I basically bought the best computers he had for fucking dirt cheap prices, and I got the GTX 1050 Ti because I was the first one that got that value. A lot of these people were looking for monitors that they weren't willing to pay more than $5. I was willing to go the extra mile. I think I had made a lot of profit off of it, but I'm not gonna get into detail. Basically, I sold that 1050 Ti the other day for $180, and I had to ship it as well. So the guy ended up paying $200, which is ridiculous, but nevertheless, that's what happened. So I had a lot of cash with me. So I decided, you know what, I'm gonna full upgrade. I want a Vega. I looked at the Vega prices, and I don't know if you guys know about Timmy Joe. Timmy Joe is a good guy. I like that guy. He's from Barrie. I'm not close from Barrie. I'd say I'm in a proximity, and that's like, you know, in the hundreds of kilometers. And this motherfucker, which I love this guy, but he's a motherfucker because he fucking he boost Vega prices, and he when I mean boost, he ruined the market kinda. Vega, you know, Vega 56s were going all the way down to $230. I've seen Vegas sell for $180. I was so happy. It was about to buy one. He made a video about it. They went all the way back up to 300, 350. So that pissed me off. It wasn't as bad as the Bitcoin craze, but it was bad. So I ended up getting the next best thing, the R9 Furies. R9 Furies were more rare. Nobody wants them. They're similar power. I mean, a Fury X and a 56, plus or minus 15%. Especially when the Fury X's are overclocked, but not when the 56 is overclocked. So kind of in that range. So I told myself, well, listen, I wanted two Vega 56s. What I could do is just get two Furies, or Fury X's if I can afford it, and I'd be kind of happy. I calculated it. I should be getting 22 teraflops of power. Okay, not 22, 20, even then, maybe 19 teraflops of power. That's still ridiculously good in 2020. So I didn't really care. They run DX12. Biggest problem was you have to run community drivers, and I don't care. I like doing that. I like searching for fucking. I'm the Raiders of the Lost drivers, like, effectively. So I ended up buying two Furies. My first one, and this was for Christmas actually. So my first one was an R9 Fury, regular. As you know, some R9 Furies, they can core unlock. But what you probably don't know is that the Fury Strix are almost always Fury X's that have like one or two stability problems, so they drop it all the way down to 56 CUs. So what that means is, if you want a good card that basically core unlocks every fucking time to Fury X or almost Fury X performance, I suggest a Strix. And I got really lucky because I full 64 CU'd core unlocked this bad boy. And by the way, the Strix is a huge card. It's a direct CU 3. It's absolutely amazing, and I thought it was just so sexy. So I'm so happy that it's in my build right now. I bought it for $130 off a guy from all the way in Quebec, which is not so far, but it was definitely a couple hours. He shipped it to me, $130. I core unlocked it a couple days later because the card was cold and I had, you know how it is. And basically, I went in the 64 CU. I looked at the stability, and it just wasn't quite there. I was artifacting just a bit, just a bit. So I went down to the next, which is the next best thing, which is 60 CU. 60 CU actually had more artifacts. Then I went back down to 58, or was it 57? I don't remember. The 3776 cores, stream processors, and that one was extremely unstable. So I presumed that if there was any core problems, they were closer to the die than otherwise, which basically means that you got your 56 cores, and then let's imagine them, like, just imagine the 56 stream processors, and then beside that you have a gap, and that gap is the shitty cores, and then you have a second gap of, like, I don't know, fucking 6 or 8 CU. Oh no, how many CUs? That's 4. So yeah, literally 6 or 7 CUs that just fully function. So I decided to try to get a custom BIOS, and I'm not done with it, but I'm pretty much sure that I'm getting either 57. No. I'm sure that I'm getting 60 to 63 CUs, because if only one of these CUs are bad, okay, at worst 2 of them are bad, I can still get all of the rest. Now, is it going to be stable, or are we going to have latency problems, or are we going to have frame time problems? I'll have to check. But I basically got, you know, almost as powerful as a 56 for like a third of the price, because I lowballed this guy, and he just accepted it because nobody was buying his card. So I was extremely happy, especially because he lived buttfuck nowhere. Next card I bought was an R9 Fury X, and it's being dealt with right now. I'm not sure what's gonna happen, but I ended up lowballing him on eBay this time. I went. He was asking for, I think it was 250 Canadian, fully functioning, everything boot up. Okay, great. I told myself, he didn't have any pictures of it booting up. He didn't have any pictures whatsoever. So I told myself, listen, if he's trying to scam me, then, as I do most of the time, you know, if he's trying to scam you, what you do is you buy the card, and then you ask for a refund. So you get the card and you get a refund. And that's what I did. And guess what happened? The pump didn't work. The pump was broken. I was thermal throttling, and that's not a good sign for you fucking normies. But to me, that's a cash grab right there, because I got my money back, which, by the way, I had lowballed him to $150. He took it. He didn't ask me for any more. He took it. Cost me $180 because of the shipping. I basically made profit on this graphics card, because once I got the card, once I got my refund, and then Canada Post recently sent me an email, and I checked all the boxes, and one box said, we need a quote. We need a quote for the repair. So I quoted them. The biggest 120mm liquid cooler, Corsair H80i V2, cost me $130. So, and it's not in yet, but I either saved another $50, so it cost me almost as little as the Fury Strix, or I made. Did I make money? Oh no, I didn't make any money. You're right. I didn't make any money because I got the cooler. So I basically have two of the best Furies you could ever buy in your life. All right, this video is getting long. Let's skip. So that's effectively my build right now. I need a better Hyper 202. Better CPU cooler in general. Thinking of doing liquid. Might not because it's expensive. Don't know yet. But I'm trying to hit like fucking, ridiculous clocks, like 4.9, please. I want 4.9, please. So that's what I've been doing. It's Valentine's Day, so I might as well also talk about another build. Why not? I decided to build something nice, for myself. Not really for anyone else. Okay, maybe for someone else, but only if they want it. It's not that impressive. It's effectively so I talked about graphic cards. Let's go back to CPUs. CPUs right now are retarded. Okay, you can buy a Sandy Bridge has gone down. Okay, Sandy Bridge was going for 150 for a while. Now if you go on Facebook Marketplace, you could get a good little 3930K for $70, whatever. They're good, they're powerful, whatever. Just buy yourself that honey. However, and I always thought this, Sandy Bridge is good till you look at how FX overclocks. I want to learn how to better overclock. I've done some poor overclocking in the past, and I want to learn how to do some good overclocking. And I was from my senpai, Buildzoid, I was extremely recommended AMD FX. I've always wanted an FX. All right, when I'm not that old. When I got into gaming PCs, 2015, 2016, I wanted something cheap. I was going for a Skylake i5 because they overclocked okay, and they were almost like i7s. Then I wanted a 6-core i7 6800, and those ones are just bad overclockers. They're much more expensive than any of the other ones, and they're not very desirable in a lot of aspects. So then I went back down. I said, okay, what can I get that's kind of 8 cores and kind of not 8 cores, but has a lot of cores and overclocks good. And that's when I saw the FX. And obviously FX, at the time I wanted a 8350. Then I looked at the 9590 because the 9590 had 5 gigahertz already in there. But then I just said no, because I wanted to wait for it. I ended up getting the Core 2 Duo Xbox, and basically, it didn't look worth it at the time. Anyways, I was playing on Xbox One. I didn't really care for any of the new games. Counter-Strike was fine on the Core 2 Quad that I had with a GTX Titan, so I didn't really need it. What ended up happening was I looked at the FX and I saw that the gaming performance wasn't great, and that pissed me off. And I didn't want to buy Intel because I saw Intel, fucking 6600K, which is I think is 20% better in some games, and only 5% better in other games, and then some games. No games the 9590 is better. I don't remember that happening, but considering you get an i3, Skylake i3 6100, overclock it to 4.5, and that would still not be as good as a 9590. That was definitely a sign that there was something wrong with Intel. So I just didn't buy anything Intel that was new. So now, recently they told me get an FX. How much is FX right now? Well, it's dirt cheap. I can tell you that with a straight face. You know why? And it's worth it because it's dirt cheap. You know why? Because people that, they came in gaming from 2011, 2012, 2013, maybe 2014, they don't fucking care about gaming sometimes. Some of them don't fucking care anymore. They have full jobs. They don't care anymore. So what they're doing now is they're selling their computers. And I think this is a similar story to my Xeon, but the Xeon was for server side. So these gaming guys, they came in the gaming series. They came in the gamings for with a cheap computer. It was good. They upgraded. It was good, but it wasn't great. Now they wanna, get away from gaming. So they're selling these FXs. I got my FX. I'm pretty sure it's an 8350 high leakage. I will be checking out if it's a high leakage, but it's an 8350. So I bought a Sabertooth Gen 3 R2.0. Gen 3 meaning it has PCI 3.0. Now it's not full compatibility, but I've looked at some benchmarks, I think, and it's good. Like it's good for that. It's got a PCI slot. I absolutely needed a PCI slot. It's just beautiful. It came with 8 gigs of RAM, overclocker RAM. I think with some Corsair stuff. It came with a liquid cooler. I think it's Corsair H60. Could be an H55. No, it's definitely an H60 because it's a thick one. Plus the H55s weren't really in this guy's time. And I also got an SLI bridge, but that's just his mistake. I came from a really long way to go get it. Okay, it cost me what, $10 gas. My bad. But got all these 6 things for $120. $120. Okay, $120, guys. $120. $120, guys. $120. Can you even believe this? I gotta fucking dude. My computer that I have right now cost me. Whole thing cost me. I think it's somewhere between $500 and $600, and this is with all the rebates and price drops, and I didn't consider gas money. I don't think I used a lot of gas for it because a lot of the components I either used the bus or any of these things. But I did consider all the things I sold for it. I did consider the Xbox original PC. Because it wasn't exactly expensive when I got it. I did consider the R9 290, even though technically I considered it with the value that I gave it. I gave it $180 value. So, anyways, that one was $500 to $600. My next computer, because of that deal, the $120 dollars, because I still have a Hyper 202 with me. From another deal, not the same as the dual CPU deal, because I have a couple other things. I have a power supply. I got an 850 watt for cheap. I can get an Antec LAN boy for I don't know, like $5-10. Got to talk to the guy though. All these things. The only thing I'm missing is a graphics card. Graphics cards are shit right now. They're terrible market. Because I have all these things, I basically built myself a computer for half the price of the computer that I have today, and it's almost the same performance. Well, except for graphical performance, but CPU performance, overclocking, headroom, all things considered, I have a fucking amazing build coming up. It's going to be my test bench. I will be putting just about every fucking GPU, not every CPU, because I'm not going to put CPUs in it. I'm going to put every RAM, every GPU. I'm going to do some hard drive testing. Going to do a lot of stuff with it. It's going to be my test bench, and it's going to be my LAN party system. Oh yeah, LAN party system. I'm going to be putting a chiller on it. I found a laboratory chiller for really cheap. I'm going to be using that. Well, see, the thing is, I've heard that it's bad. It's a bad idea because laboratory chillers aren't really made to stay temperature for really long. They're just kind of made to, what's it called? They're kind of made to just like cool down something and then, wait for it to go back up and then cool it back down. That's not good for what we're trying to do. We're trying to get a stable coldness, so we'll check out for that. But I could definitely put a chiller on it. I could definitely there's a lot of stuff you could do with FX to get better performance. So with a chiller you could definitely do 5.2 to 5.5 gigahertz. That's unheard of with other platforms, even Intel, even the new Intel 9000s. Excuse me, haven't even eaten yet. What else? It could, so the 5.5 gigahertz. They have ECC support, all FX CPUs have ECC support. I'm pretty sure. Maybe the low end don't, but yeah, they overclock with ECC, which is cool. We'll talk about that in another build. They have up to this motherboard has up to 32 gigs of RAM. That's good. Some motherboards for FX have up to 64, so that's extremely good. This motherboard specifically has an 8+2 phase. The good 990FX motherboards, which really are the, they're pretty, they're not rare, but they're, it's just a couple of them. The good ones, they sell for $250, by the way, or $200 or $250, I don't remember, but they sell for cheap. Okay, no, not fuck me. I'm talking about my ass now. Okay. Let me try to assemble my words so that I don't mix up, I don't fucking skip, I don't fucking trip. So, FX processors, why are they good? Well, they overclock like crazy. They're cheap as hell, as what I just got. Their resale value is good if you find a fucking dumbass. They support up to 32 to 64 gigs. They overclock, like RAM overclocking will be dirt cheap, and you will get good performance. Like from DDR3 to DDR4, DDR3 is worth it because it's like less than half the price of DDR4. And if you want overclockers RAM, you're getting like better latency but slightly worse bandwidth. So if you look at, okay, this is how I consider RAM currently, because I'm not exactly the biggest RAM guy. Don't really overclock RAM all that much. So the way I see it is DDR4 I think it's twice as good in bandwidth per megahertz. But if you get DDR4 3000, it's going to cost you like $70-80 for 8 gigs. Versus DDR3 is going to cost you $30 to $40 for 8 gigs. So, and it's also going to be a 2 times 4 for the DDR3 versus a 1 times 8 for the DDR4. So what that does is basically DDR3 is going to be more stable at higher clocks. You could hit, I've heard of people hitting DDR3 with 22, 24, 26 megahertz on FX, whilst your DDR4, it's not going to hit much more than 3400. So that's kind of how I calculate it. And then also the fact that DDR4 has much lower cast latency. If you want DDR4 to overclock over 4000, your cast latency is going to be ridiculous. It's going to be like 17, 19, versus your DDR3, it's almost half of that. So this is why I see DDR3 as still good, as really good actually. For low amounts of RAM applications, DDR3 is still very usable. It's extremely good, so that's good. What else does FX have? Well, FX has most FX motherboards have a lot of legacy extensions. They use a lot of legacy extensions. I mean legacy expansion slot possibilities. So you have PCIe 1.0. No, wait, no, 1.0 is always. I'm such an idiot. PCI. It has PCI. It has PCIe 2.0 x16. It has PCIe 3.0 x8, I believe. Some people have told me x8 16, but it has M.2 support. Yes, it does. There are select very late 990FX motherboards, especially the Sabertooth's R3.0. They had M.2 support. They're not as fast as other ones, but you have that. Really large power phases that are apparently extremely good. And they're just amazing platforms overall. You can get up to 8 cores. The other thing is, AM3. You don't have to use an AM3 Plus motherboard with your FX CPUs, and that's a big trick I'm gonna use for my competition potentially. I'm not gonna talk about that right now, but you can use an AM3 board, and you could put 6 cores in the board. You could put an FX 6300, and that'll work. And the thing is, an 890 FX was never meant to use FX CPUs because it came out in 2009. But what that also means is you could get an 890 FX for $20 with a Phenom 2 X4, or maybe sometimes X6. Sell the Phenom 2 for, I don't know, 40. No, not 40. Okay, we'll say 20. And then get a 6300. And then overclock it to over 4.5. I've heard people 4.7. But after that, the motherboard is going to hate you. So it's got a lot of potential. This build's got a lot of potential. I bought one of the best motherboards. I bought one of the best CPUs, if not the best CPU. I bought good RAM. I'm going to sell the cooler because I don't really need a liquid cooler currently. And I got, what else did I got an SLI bridge, so I can, SLI the fuck up. Now I need your guys' help. I need a graphics card for this build. I don't know which one to use. I'm just gonna use an HD 6870, 2GB model, but it's a blower fan, so it's quite loud. Got it for free, so I don't really care. But I don't know what you guys want. Should I start reviewing shit? Should I start making more podcasts, which cost a lot in fucking terms of shit, cost a lot in shit time. I mean, what should I do with my channel? I'm really confused. I'm gonna continue making music videos. I'm gonna continue making music because I like doing music. I'm gonna start making YouTube poops, and I'm hoping to make PC reviews / PC documentaries / any kind of PC shit. So that's me in 2020. That's my Pyromaniac build. My next build, I'm gonna call it. I think I'm gonna call it Atrocitus Kilowog, which I don't know if you guys get that reference, but it's Green Lantern reference. And I don't know. We'll see from there. I want to get a streaming system up and running. I want to start streaming Assetto Corsa. I'm not good at it, but I respect the game, and I really like the modding community. I love cars. I'm a big car guy. Other than computers, I like cars. So that's it for today. Thanks for tuning in. I know it's a long video, but yeah, have a good day.